Webinar. This panel is entitled Digital Transformation for a New Era. I know it's a buzzword that we're all living with right now quite a bit. We're looking at maximizing the potential of analytics, AI, and automation. I'm Brian Falchuk. I'm the moderator for today's panel. I'm the managing partner of Insurance Evolution Partners and the author of The Future of Insurance from Disruption to Evolution. And I'm joined today by Anna Fote, Eugene Wen, and Vikram Mahidhar. We will introduce each of them in turn. They're each going to give you some thoughts to start the conversation, and then we're going to kick it over to Q&A. And I encourage everyone, use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen and ask your questions there. Try not to use the chat. Use that Q&A that allows us to manage the questions, and you can ask them at any time while someone's talking, afterwards while the Q&A session is live, and I will remind you throughout. So please do submit your questions, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can. Today, we're going to be looking at really a few things within this notion of digital transformation. It's become a matter of necessity for all of us globally, not just in pockets of the market, not just in life health or P&C or insurance for that matter, as we all know. And a lot of us have had to pick between the quick wins, the immediate term things we need to do today to keep the lights on, and not losing sight of those longer term, more strategic projects that could set the stage for the long run of where we as an industry, let alone each of us in our individual businesses, will be heading. And I know those are the kinds of things that we'll be digging into today. This conversation is a part of a series building up to the conference next month called The Future of Insurance Canada. It's a virtual event hosted by Reuters Events, and it's happening November 3rd and 4th, and you can register for that right now. So please do head to Reuters Events website and register for that event. If this conversation is interesting to you, you will get much more and much more depth around subjects like this one of digital transformation as we all think about how we move forward. So with that, there's Eugene's cameras come back on. That's great that we have him here as well. Let me introduce our first panelist, Anna Fote. Anna is the Director of Global Transformation for Sun Life in Canada. She loves the power of possibility and the passion of entrepreneurs. I love that phrase. She's worked at a startup, grown with one of the most famous Canadian scale-ups and subsequent crashes. So she's been through the ups and the downs, and today works at Sun Life Financial in the digital transformation office. And with that, Anna, I'd love to hear your thoughts and set the stage a bit for today's conversation.
Wonderful. Well, I am a word nerd, so full disclosure, I have an English degree. I certainly do not have a math or science degree, so I will leave that to other people, but a turn of phrase is something that I, from time to time, can do very well. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I think COVID has kind of forced us all to really reimagine our business. And our CEO, Dean Connor, recently said very eloquently as well, it made us operate in a gear that we didn't necessarily know we had in us. So I want to talk today about some of the product innovations that we've been able to accomplish in the midst of this crisis to kind of respond to our clients' needs. We are accelerating digitization, we're integrating all kinds of data sources, and really trying to be responsive in terms of the issues that our clients are having and try to proactively navigate to them to give them solutions. So I'm going to talk about a few things specifically in the vein of virtual care. We've done a lot. And we were thinking about virtual care long before COVID and spent some time doing some research. So, with the research that we did, Canadians told us that, almost 70% wanted access to their primary care physician outside of business hours. 50% said they wanted to miss less time away from their office. And 45% thought if they were able to access primary care virtually, they might have more regular visits leading to better healthcare outcomes. So then, of course, COVID hit and many, many questions about tests and symptoms and how to manage and the difference between isolation and quarantining certainly had us accelerate our efforts, and we penned a deal with Dialogue. So when we think about kind of why that's important for our clients, we start thinking about things like clients of ours that don't have a family doctor, so they can't actually access primary care, or they live in an area that, let's say, has not a ton of doctors or not the right specialists for them, but for a lot of clients, just things like not requiring a follow-up visit in person. So maybe the initial visit is to a primary care physician in person, but the follow-up is a virtual thing. So we really took these kind of concepts and ideas and funneled them into Lumino Health, which is our wellness platform for all Canadians. So in April, they launched Lumino Health Virtual Care in partnership with Dialogue. And what this allows our clients to do for a fee is access professionals such as mental health practitioners. They can access this through their phone or mobile app, and it includes a ton of healthcare appointments. What happens, and the reason we're really excited about it, and I think the ways it speaks to this topic, is based on the answers that a member would give. So the software asks them and triages them through a bunch of questions. And then that AI would red flag any serious issues and also create a bit of a medical history. And then they place the member into a video chat with the right sort of professional, whether that be a nurse practitioner, and a doctor, really dependent on the sort of condition that they want to be treated for. What we're finding is this actually covers about 70% of a lot of primary care visits. So for our plan sponsors, they're very grateful to be able to have continuity in the health of their employees, and for employees directly being able to have this sort of access to this care at this time. We believe obviously that this is something that's here to stay. So in very short order, the Lumino team was able to indicate practitioners that were providing virtual visits during the pandemic to allow our members to see that, but then going a step farther and actually providing access to primary care as a service, both to our members and our sponsors. In the US, I'll just touch on briefly, we have a bit of a different business there, but obviously the stop loss business that we pursue has been impacted significantly since COVID. Stop loss insurance protects self-funded employers when they have unexpected and high dollar medical claims. So the new Sun Life stop loss that we built in the midst of a pandemic with one of our partners, Maxwell Health, provided things like, Collective Health, outbreak coverage. So immediately we were able to, through Collective Go, give them outbreak coverage, specific benefit coverage. So if an employee, for example, receives a diagnosis resulting in a hospitalization, that reach the employer's stop loss deductible, the benefit increases to the amount of the reimbursement to the employer. And things like aggregate benefits. So if the amount of claims that COVID causes health claims to incur exceeds their aggregate stop loss, the attachment point will be reduced, resulting in a larger reimbursement for the employer. So just a couple examples, Brian, of ways that we were able to, both with our experience data over the last 150 plus years, taking a look at what was happening in the market pre-COVID and staying on top of trends, and really being open to partnership. I really feel good about the speed at which we were able to bring really critical product innovations to market. And obviously data and analytics will play a huge role as we go forward and kind of watch what happens and how people respond and what we need to do to maintain the health of our members. That's why we're in business.
Yeah, that's great. I love this. It's a complete view of it. This digital transformation at a point of necessity is not just about tech and digital things. You also talked about changing some of the non-digital things and thinking kind of holistically about what is a customer experience, what's the journey, what's their need. And sometimes it's tech and sometimes it's just a different way of the non-tech stuff. So it's I think that's really interesting and probably something for us to remember. We have to put ourselves in the customer's shoes, not just in the app or the website or the whatever it is that we're deploying. There's a bigger context to it. So fantastic. Yeah, and that openness I think leads to some great partnering opportunities that you might not have thought of otherwise. So thank you for that, Anna. Eugene, you're up next. Let me give a little bit of context for Eugene and then some great thoughts from his perspective at Manulife. Eugene joins us as Vice President of Group Advanced Analytics at Manulife. He leads the data scientist team in supporting corporate functions, creates governance and policy frameworks for analytics, establishes R&D capabilities and advanced analytics to support the business across the entire company. Eugene is passionate about using data and analysis to support strategic and operational decision making. So with that, Eugene, I'd love to hear your perspective from Manulife.
Thank you. Thank you all for this opportunity. And it's nice to follow with Anna's introduction, because Manulife, Sun Life, we all supporting our customers. And even we are competing on the market, but a lot of the principles are the same. Digital transformation is the same for Manulife. Our CEO, present CEO, Roy Gorey, has recently defined a new strategy, and the digital is the center of the whole strategy. And advanced analytics, AI, machine learning is also a key component of Manulife's digital strategy and the whole digital transformation. I'd like to shift in a little bit the focus, given Anna has focused on the COVID response side, and Manulife, we do similar thing, and using our digital capability we built up in the past few years to quickly pivot to supporting our customers in this difficult time. And it's demonstrated all the investment, all the hard working, up and downs, all paid off during this critical time. But I like to shifting much more on a broader view on the insurance industry, especially on the life insurance. In the old say, people say that insurance, life insurance specifically, is sold, not bought. And in the industry, we all know this term. But what this means? This means that it's indicated a soft spot for the whole insurance industry comparing to other industries, let's say retail, and now the Amazon or the digital services, because we have a very complicated product. And take example, life insurance. You grab a person on the street, they can tell you how they bought things from Google and from Amazon, and ask them any life product, good luck. And that created a challenge for insurance companies, especially life insurance, how we modernize our services to our customer, how to make our services easily understandable and better engage them. So in the digital transformation, from that sense, hold much dear into life insurance industries, services, and the whole business model. Because without this digital channel, we can't engage with customer. Now, new generation, they live grown up with digital. And so this is the whole digital transformation. It's not just a add-on. It is key part of our business forward. That really put another challenge is how life insurance, we can transform ourselves in a digital time. We really need to reconsider our business model. In the old ways, and even continue in many of line of business, the life insurance company engage with the customers the first time with get product bought. If that customer continue to pay the premiums, the last time talk, if this person passed away and file a claim, this is not a way of operation in this kind of customer engagement. So we need to reconsider how we can turn our business model around to fit in this new age of expectation of constant engagement. So Manulife and John Hancock in US pioneered a new way of engagement, convert a typical life insurance becoming a constant engagement customer. That's Manulife Vitality product we offered. So for anyone who's our customer, they can sign up for this Vitality program, and you can get a free Apple Watch or other wearables if you continue meet all those exercises, and you can get a online or app. This app can track you with your agreement, all your physical exercises. You walk upstairs, you in the kitchen, in the garden, and you make a run. Or you have a healthy lifestyle and eating healthy and sleep on time and all these. And this app can assess your vitality age. And we all have our biological age. I was trained as a physician, but our kind of physical age may a little bit differ from what we see ourselves, that biological age. And with this app, you can know how your relative age from your healthy perspective. If you are really keep up all those exercises and you earn points. And with the earned points, you can get discount of your premium. And with discount your premium, you can, in addition to financial incentives, you can also use those points for all other things. You can see suddenly with this digital application, with wearable instrument, our engagement with our customer from once a lifetime into a multiple times during the day, and also mechanism of incentive becoming a positive cycle. Customers don't want to die, and we wish them not die. But with this digital app and the instrument, we work together, make them healthier. And there has been research and data proved people who following all this and can really substantially reduce their all the health challenges and expect living longer. So with all these analytical, in addition to these applications, underwriting and claim management and fraud detection, all these are all subject to the advanced analytics, to the digital applications. So I'm sure we will talk further on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eugene. And I think it's another great example of thinking about what that customer is. And you called it out as a whole new generation of customers who are growing up digital first, or who have grown up largely digital. And so their set of expectations are completely different. And that opens the door to trying new things, trying something very different. And the Vitality program is really interesting. So thank you for that. Vikram Mahidhar from Genpact is the global leader of digital transformation there, and he is our next speaker. So Vikram is an entrepreneur, an innovator, an advisor, and at Genpact, he leads digital transformation to drive large-scale transformations using artificial intelligence, analytics, intelligent automation, cloud services globally for Genpact and with all of their clients. I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to hit on today, and I'm sure he's been extremely busy lately, as those are the key things that people are suddenly really amping up. So Vikram, I'm very interested in your perspective.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I'm thrilled to be here. Particularly talking about the insurance industry, which is quite near and dear to my heart. Because I've been watching this industry for a while. It has been ripe and at the cusp of disruption. And finally, I think this pandemic actually pushed it over the hump. That's how I see it. I'm a proud customer, by the way, of Vitality, not just only me, my thousands of colleagues here. We subscribe to it. Sorry, Anna, we are a customer of your competitor, but we like you as well. More importantly, I think both Anna and Eugene have very nicely articulated three big trends, if you may. One is really the patient care or consumption of services is actually moving into the homes of consumers. And early on, we were discussing that is that going to be a permanent change or not? And all the indications are that looks like it's going to be a permanent change. Number two is what that means is that your business models are changing. Right? Anna described, completely new products and new way of delivering them, which is the change in operating model. Likewise, what Eugene described is exactly the same. Obviously, none of these products or services are created overnight. But the third thing that we are noticing is that the speed of change, given that many of these products will be launched and tested, and some will stick and some will not. The need for launching, testing, and kind of solidifying these products at a very high pace has gone up dramatically. It doesn't matter which industry you talk about, but I see that in the insurance industry quite a bit. Okay, and what we're talking about is typically it used to take 3 to 5 years, sometimes more than that, for a product to come to life. Now we are looking at 12 to 18 months, right? So that has compressed quite a bit. Now, when we talk about products like Vitality, where from a consumer standpoint, or by the way, patient care through telehealth and things like that, it sounds like, hey, you put together a nice user interface, probably some sort of a wearable, and life is golden. Not really, because end of the day, at the center of it, it's experience. What kind of experience are you going to deliver to your end user? And we at Genpact actually have been heavily investing in this particular area of experience, because even if it is about the process, which is front office, mid office, back office, it starts with how do you really think about the customer journey or the consumer journey? Whenever they are looking to buy something, right? Now you're not selling, as Eugene mentioned. If they're buying a life insurance, how can it be seamless for them so that they don't have to go through all that clumsy paperwork, etc.? Can they buy it on their mobile phone, right? Or something else, right? You give them a lot of analysis and say, this is the right thing for you, right? A whole different experience, right? The second piece is if they're filing some sort of a claim, right? Mid office, back office, how does that claim flow through, right? So that there is no friction. And as an insurance company, by the way, you have a much better control on your economics as well, your risk modeling for underwriting, and what kinds of claims are you processing versus not, right? Fraud, etc. All that, I mean, technically speaking, can be very much automated, right? And the focus can be actually on the insights, right? And then the third thing, by the way, is when I speak with a lot of my clients, and we are a professional services provider to large insurance companies. One of the questions that always comes up is build versus buy, right? So how much should we build in-house, and what should we buy in terms of services, etc. And it's a great question. There is no kind of one size fits all, but the speed at which we are innovating out there, and the speed at which we are experimenting with AI, and also the speed at which AI is being invented, as a field, right? For companies to build a lot of things in the future, and sort of sit on it as an IP, I feel that that is going to be a very difficult, or probably that may not be part of the operating model. The operating model that we see emerging is basically composable services. Whole bunch of composable services that companies assemble with their IP as a business model or an operating model, so that is unique to them, and the data and the ownership of the consumer or customer, that's what we see differentiating many of these customers. So I would love to share a lot more insights around how we are helping execute and commercialize some of these composable services for our clients.
That's a really interesting perspective, Vikram, especially because you see across so many carriers. So you can get that feel for what's going on in the market. And maybe thinking ahead a bit, a quick note on the Q&A. There's some great questions coming in. We're about to step into that point, but someone asked, I'll give her credit, Sophia Dawson asked about the link to register for the Future of Insurance Canada. Great question. I put that in the chat and in the Q&A responses. So if you're interested in registering, you can get right to that link and register, but it's also listed on the reutersevents.com/insurance homepage. But I've taken out the search for you. You can click right there. Please do ask questions. We've got some really good ones that have been coming in. So this is going to be an interesting conversation right off the bat, but please don't stop. Keep them coming. The first one came in quite early on from Clifford Cohen, and his question, and we'll go around the horn on this one, but would you say front-facing allied services are gaining momentum and becoming more important? If so, how important? Anna, you were the first one to mention the remote and alternative ways of distributing is probably the wrong word, but giving health services. So I'd love to start with you on that.
I really think it's not one is more or less important. I think technology is a tool, and it's a tool that we can deploy effectively, but it's not an island. So I think, you know, you really, all the panelists talked about kind of this experience and really thinking about, I've been thinking a lot about the intersection between kind of public healthcare in Canada, private insurers, the role of each as we go into this pandemic, and what used to be very separate. So, you know, publicly funded health and private insurance, we're watching it blend in real time. And so I don't have the answer of what it should look like, but I think starting to think about our members as patients, our patients as people, and how the system, whether it's a recognized system or not, it's the way people are accessing care, and it really absolutely determines some of their health outcomes. So thinking about our part in that much bigger ecosystem using technology as a tool.
Eugene, how about yourself? What are your views on this?
Yes, it's similar on this front. We need to balance both find a solution for our clients, for our customers, at the same time maintain the integrity and also the structure efficiency at the same time.
Yeah, I think both of you raising the right point, or a good point. There's no right and wrong, but that it's not a one winning out and the other losing out. It's about how you bring them together to deliver that customer service that they're seeking, that care that they were looking for in the first place. And maybe now there are more modalities and options available to someone who, you know, Anna, you had described like people in different or remote locations that may not have had access otherwise. So suddenly it could present new options for care that weren't there before. Vikram, looking across different insurers in the Canadian market and what you guys are working on enabling with your work at Genpact, what sort of things are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, see, one of the most important thing that we are seeing is that most insurance companies, or all insurance companies, are putting customer at the center of everything, more so than ever before. You know, and you know, even though the industry is complex, you go through brokers and so on and so forth. Not anymore. Customers, even brokers, are thinking, how do I put customers at the center? Carriers are thinking the same way, etc. And the emphasis, a lot of emphasis, is on analytics and insights and actions. How do I gather that data so that I can provide better care to the customer, right? Now, obviously, there are elements here around data privacy. Customers are confused. What should I share? Frankly, when I wore my Apple Watch and installed Vitality on it, I'm like, oh my God, you know, should I be sharing my sleep patterns with an insurance company? I mean, what does that mean? But as an analytics guy and as an AI guy, I was thrilled with it. I'm like, okay, let me see what comes out of it, right? I mean, is this going to be something meaningful, or am I going to get some vague kind of, you know, actions on it? but the reality is that it's quite meaningful. It's very meaningful actually. And end of the day, I see that insurance companies, technology companies, many technology companies, I can't vouch for everybody, are actually supremely careful about how do I manage privacy, right? How do I manage, how do I protect my customer? But at the same time, guide them enough, right, with the right experience to make the right choices. And it's very hard. It's much harder than you think it is. Now, for a customer, by the way, it comes out as spooky. That, well, how did you know, right? But all of us have gotten used to it on our Amazon buying experience. Customer who bought this also bought that, and we quickly click on that and sort of end up buying it, right? So why not include that in more complex and in fact products that really matter to our life? So that's what we are seeing, sort of insurance companies really thinking about.
Yeah, I think kind of tying your answer to Eugene's point before, that new generation of consumers who are inherently more comfortable with some of these things, and others that we will get comfortable with them, and not everybody will. So having some of that choice and flexibility is really critical. But yeah, I mean, we have that initial like, oh, is this something I'm actually okay with? And you get into it and you see what the options and the possibilities are. Vikram, you made a point about focusing on the insights rather than just sort of jumping ahead with all the answers, because you don't even know what the question is, perhaps. There's a question here from Chen Shen. It's specific to some of the geographical constraints, but I'll read it, and I actually want to broaden it out a little bit because I think it hits at a really interesting kind of regulatory change or point that we're facing. It says, for virtual primary care, how would this change the public funding system? So would for example, British Columbia doctor be able to see patients in Ontario funded by OHIP? To me, this is, that's a good specific question, but there's this broader question of some of the new delivery, some of the new solutions may not actually fit the regulatory context, or perhaps the claims funding context. I know as an American, that was one of the early problems is, telemedicine was not an option if the provider was out of state, and in-state providers were suddenly so slammed or didn't have the solutions in place that carriers had to very quickly change their approach to what they do and don't pay for. Add in a regulatory constraint there, you can't necessarily deliver a new solution as quickly. So I'm curious if that's something you guys have faced and what sort of conversations you're having around areas where there's a regulatory question coming to play. And you're nodding, so you're catching my attention. Hopefully that means you've got something to add on this. I didn't just throw you under the bus.
Well, I think, this has been going on for a while. This idea of virtual care, and certainly in the last couple of weeks, Maple, who's like outside of an insurance scheme, which is why I'm going to use them because it's a cleaner example. They've been doing this for years, and actually a lot of the reason that they got so much attention is they were actually using Toronto doctors to fuel a clinic in Eastern Canada that literally did not have enough physicians. So the regulation is good, but I think in times of crisis, sometimes those rules are no longer that meaningful. And so our partnership with Dialogue is a way for us to be compliant. But I guess I just also raise the question. I think it's true that there's risks and benefits. It's not all goodness. We need to be sure that we have continuity of care and patients and physicians with a meaningful relationship. But it's also true that there's lots of unrostered patients, not only in Ontario, but across Canada. So I think the trick is, how do you protect people, but don't protect them so much that they literally don't have access to anything? So, and that's why I'm saying, like, balancing these two polarities, I think is very difficult to do. And I think some of the regulations were important pre-COVID, but if the system kind of starts to crash down, we need to get creative and make the best next decision that we can. And whether that's tech or whether that's changing the rules to serve people's needs, those are the sorts of things that we should be brave enough to do.
Yeah, I think that's exactly exactly the conundrum that we're in is regulation's not all bad, not all constraining, and not all ill-intentioned. But then the whole world changes, and in this case changed very rapidly. So suddenly something that might have had a well-meaning genesis now is actually creating complications. And how do we move quickly without then creating other problems? Eugene, is this a discussion point at Manulife? And I guess with your hat on, how can data be helpful in this to spot solutions or places where we may run into problems?
Yes, this kind of virtual and digital world, it put the challenge, as we just mentioned, on the previous regulatory frameworks and even infrastructure frameworks. But at the same time, it does pose new opportunities. And take example, what you just mentioned, and specialist. If a specialist doesn't have in one places, and you can get special opinions from other places. In addition to this, it's virtual knowledge, not just to have to physically, I have to call Anna or call Vikram if I'm still practicing and they all practicing too. What they have, their knowledge already in the virtual world. I don't need a license to access it. I can access, all follow the current framework. That's how this kind of a new virtual knowledge base in practices that get into advanced analytics, AI, machine learning we have talked today. And a lot of this is build all the previous knowledges in the whole world, embedded into the algorithms and the programs can serve our daily practices, not just special cases. Take example for underwriting. An underwriting model process for life insurance, we all know it took a very long and took quite a laborsome. For cases, you have the nurse and to knock your door and to take blood sample, urine sample, and others, and 40 pages questions. And it does fit in the digital world today. And the same topic is, and next generation, they wouldn't tolerate this kind of buying processes. And in the underwriting process now, multiple companies, including Manulife, has using machine learning models, trying to solve this problem, make it faster, make it less invasive. And you don't need the blood sample for everybody. You don't need other food samples. And you don't need 40 pages questions. And with limited information, with all the rich history, all the knowledge the industry has accumulated, with all the learning every day, we found literatures from the open data, from publicly available information, and apply them into our models. Underwriting is one. It's already in production. We call them AIDA. And many other models we can use. Another example is fraud detection. So I have a global mandate for fraud analytics in Manulife. A lot of algorithms we are using and the information we are using are already available in the open source. That's the benefit of whole virtual world. We take advantage of it, the opportunity for us to get in. And another is with external data sources can really enrich our model and our the efficiency, the precision of our models. Back to the health side, I have a long history working in the health field before I get into insurance. This debate of the healthcare and other regulation framework to constrain or how to adopt the changing need of patients, of population in primary health care is a long-standing debate. I'm sure with digital application, we will help to feed in those discussions, not just insurance, and more importantly, in the healthcare providers, in the healthcare regulations, and overall broader public health side.
That's a really interesting perspective to hear when you add in the fraud component as well, because that is one of those things that regulation could be helpful with. And so if we blow past some of those controls, do we create new avenues for some of that risk? Vikram, looking across carriers with the work that you do, and across geographies, your remit's global. This regulation problem is probably even more pressing for you than it would be for any single carrier. I'm curious how much you've had to navigate around that question as you look to some of the more digital solutions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I'm gonna sort of pick a couple of threads from what Eugene said. Look, regulators have more access to analytics and data than ever before, right? So it's not just purely sort of democratic policy decision. They have a lot of data that they can back up their policy decisions on. For example, with COVID, pretty much, every life insurance company, and we work with payers, providers, and pharma/medtech companies as well. I mean, everybody created their own epidemiological models to track how the demand for their services or their products is traversing through the world. And regulators, they lobbied with regulators, and very quickly, actually, regulators changed the boundary conditions to get the care at the right place at the right time as much as possible. And this was done in a jiffy, right? I mean, these data sets were coming in every single day, and we were running machine learning models every single day to sort of come up with as good of a prediction as possible. So if we can do that in the face of crisis, why can't we do that without the crisis? Why can't we do that every single day, right? So it's possibility. As far as possibility is concerned, it's there. We can absolutely do that. That's number one. And I think regulators are quite keen and aware of it, and you are using the data sets. It doesn't matter which geography it is. The second thing is that one piece is the historical data, and we have enough knowledge to create patterns and draw upon it. But then also now with the advent of Vitality or other startups who are gathering more data, like for example, there is a startup in this Boston area called Care Forward. What they do is they actually gather patient data post-discharge and before they show up to their next visit, in between, to basically monitor their nutritions and vitals and so on and so forth. And all that data can actually enrich now your risk models from the insurance standpoint, not just risk models, but give you a much better forecast, whether it is from the consumer level or from the business level. So we have a lot of access to sort of new data sets that customers have become comfortable sharing with. And if you combine the two, I think world is our oyster in terms of accessing wherever you are, whatever you want.
And it's like,
Brian,
Eugene,
may I just add follow-up with Vikram's? What Vikram mentioned, this is a beauty of the open data and digital world, and all the rich sources are available. But at the same time, I'm sure Anna would agree, as insurance providers, we do observe very carefully on the boundaries of what kind of data we can use. Even we have access, and what kind of data we need to be cautious to use. This is not just a regulation issue. This is on the customer's expectations, the trust, and different line of business and the boundaries. So balance both, that's the industry we need to move forward. And also, not just data and technology and customer information expectation. There's a lot of other internal processes to really engage on, a lot of investment and internally. And we need to make that digital services we just talked about, and the vision, what Vikram has described, make it into a reality. Hopefully later we can discuss further.
Yeah, no, I'll add one more thing, Brian, if you don't mind. I think what Eugene is pointing at is super important, and it's all about explainability, right? End of the day, whatever data sets I choose, whatever algorithms I choose, however I structure the processes internally, first of all, as an insurance company, am I able to explain it myself? Am I able to explain it to my customer, right? Can I stand by it? So it's not every data set and every algorithm you throw it in the Kuburo and you get the answer and world is a happy place. Absolutely not. In fact, there's a lot more responsibility on carriers to choose the right data sets and choose the right algorithms and set the right processes so that biases are not there and it's all explainable. So that's an important point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I have another question, but I don't want to, if you wanted to chime in on where this conversation is moving to, I wanted to give you the opportunity, or I can jump in with the next question.
No, keep the questions coming.
Okay. It's sort of tied together. Vikram, I did want to hit on, you said something a moment ago before Eugene added about kind of the world as a oyster. I think it's an important thing for us to remember is this is a lot. It's very overwhelming, everything that's going on. We're dealing with things in our personal lives, just changing the way that we live, let alone how we work. We are changing how we work. Our businesses are having to pivot. We're putting new solutions in place very rapidly because we have to. That can seem overwhelming. And it's a good reminder that actually maybe that's an opportunity to seize on totally new possibilities out there. So just remembering as you're sort of burning out on all the change and all the new things that we must do to survive, actually there's a lot of doors that we could be opening through this. So I wanted to just latch on to that positivity that you offered for a moment, because it can be hard to see sometimes when we're sort of overwhelmed with all that we're trying to do. So thank you for saying that. So the next question comes from Karthik Kanan, and it's, what are your views on digital adoption behavior based on age group of population serviced? Do you consciously keep that in mind when you focus on end customer experience? And are there some KPIs that help you measure success? I will say, for myself, with one of the carriers that I was working with when I was at an insurtech, they had a very large retiree population. They were based out in Florida, and this was a texting solution. And their expectation was this will be for the millennials and the younger customers. And actually their most engaged, highest percentage of adopters were the retirees. And, they were trying to figure out why, but, they were kind of sitting around with their phones out and perhaps had nothing else to do. I don't know what the reasons would be per se, but their initial presumption was way off base. So I'm really curious, what for the two carriers represented here, what are you seeing in the adoption? Are there specific demographics? Were there any surprises? And how are you watching and measuring and adjusting those things? And then, Vikram, I'll always kick you the sort of cross-industry view, but that'll be yours coming up. Anna, what are you seeing with Sun Life's experience, and how are you keeping an eye on this?
So I think we all tend to have these biases, like old people are tech illiterate, young people, just we can't satisfy their needs, both of which are in fact incorrect. So I think step one is go talk to people about how they want to interact with your company. I think, insurers broadly have tried to jam every channel all the time. And the reality is that's not really how people want to interact with us. So getting really smart and talking to people, don't make the decision inside the four walls of your company and assume a bunch of things about your customers. Go talk to them, because when you talk to them and you design something that meets their needs, then your projection and the expectation are much more likely to be aligned. And insurers like that kind of constant, no radical moves. So, it always surprises me that there is a bit of a reluctance to start with people and then figure out how the technology works. But every time we speak to our clients and our non-clients, so speaking to people for whom you're not their carrier is just as important as talking to people that are, and understanding what it is that they want out of either the engagement, the process, the product, because it's there. It's for us to go seek it out and then go build something that meets those needs.
I love that. Start with the customer. For some reason, many of us seem to fear that first thing, or we presume we know. There's nothing wrong with asking. And that's the heart of the data. It's the explainability that Vikram was saying, is look at the data, see what it's suggesting. Eugene, what's been your experience? And I'm so curious about for Vitality in particular. Are the adoptees the ones that Manulife presumed would be, or are there some surprises?
You're on mute, Eugene.
Sorry, it is quite a broad scope of adaptation, and Vikram surely representing one of the demographic categories, but it's across different ages. I'd like to follow up on what Anna just mentioned to the key for carriers to fitting different our services into different demographic groups. It's not just assuming it, and need to talk to them. And there's a one approach specifically can help all of us to talk to them. It's called human-centered design. That's a whole discipline with professional training and proving procedures and principles and methodologies. So for Manulife, we fully engaged into this effort. So just to make sure this digital transformation, all the applications we developed is this kind of human-centered designed based. We have made it a KPI, make sure all our applications and all customer interfaces need to follow this principle. And that led into my previous comment. For digital transformation, you just can't do it because you bring in a new methodology and a lot of new application technologies. There's a key part is the internal process and the people, and especially on the leadership side, it's key to make this into a reality. And that's how Manulife's experience I saw, back to your comment, is that to make it a key part of strategy and also educate everybody. Same thing for the advanced analytics and AI machine learning. We're not just to hire a whole group of data scientists. That's what I did. And it's not enough to make it a use cases transfer into value, the bottom line business value. Need a lot of people work together. Human-centered design the same, agile the same. How we make that happen? Really need build a systematic effort to educate every single employee, especially on the leadership side, the middle management. And it's quite a common phenomenon in all the large corporations. And the senior executives on the top have made a vision, have made a strategy. And the challenge later in many surveys has showed it is the middle management and really need extra effort. What we did for the machine learning AI side to develop a whole day workshop, we call them AI Machine Learning Academy, from basic concepts, from use cases, from internal and external use cases, and from the process of develop use cases and develop models, deploy them, and generate value. What their role and what their issues, and start from 8 o'clock in the morning, work out 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and they will carry a use case from their own problem and work through the whole day that out. So that kind of effort is really needed in addition to technology, to customer need, and to investment.
Yeah, I totally agree. It takes investing in the mindset of the organization and not just those at the top, and how you work that through the entire org. Vikram, how about yourself, seeing seeing across the multiple carriers and contexts?
Yeah, look, earlier you made a comment about customer being overwhelmed with all these choices and so on and so forth. And what we are noticing is generally when we think about digital transformation, right? Many companies or middle management thinks about throwing more technology at the problem, and actually it's quite the opposite. It's actually the process that we are following and some of our customers are following is first really think about what are you going to eliminate, how are you going to simplify, and then you digitize whatever needs to be digitized. To Anna's point earlier, listen to your customer, right? And if you listen to it with the mindset of simplification and elimination, right? You don't need multi-channel, whatever, strategies, the fancy strategies that we talk about. Some channels can be just enough. Like I'll give you an example, personal example. Yesterday, there was a pretty, big storm in the Boston area. I had a tree down in my backyard. And, the first instinct that at least my age group, I'm not that old, but my age group has is to pick up the phone and call the carrier. But obviously somewhere in my mind, I remembered that, EFNOL, electronic first notice of loss is also an option. So I'm just going to go and file it there. My wife did not know about it, that I'm filing the FNOL, but she ended up picking the phone and calling. And the first message on the recorded line was, if you're calling to file FNOL, just go to this particular web link and file it. You don't need to be on the phone, right? And that's it. FNOL is filed. Within 3 hours, I have a response from the carrier who will reach out to me, what's going to happen, etc. Perfect. And I love that simplification actually as a customer, right? And most customers like simplification, but yet you use the most convenient technology for me, right? So that sums it up in my view, what we are trying to do out there with customers. It's not about applying yet another another shiny tool, but it's about making it effective.
Yeah, Vikram, I just saw a comment come through as you said that. To quote you, listen to customers with the simplification mindset. Words of wisdom. That's from Murli Rao. So yeah, they are words of wisdom, and I think something we can all remember. And I'm not far from you, and I did have my axe on the ready yesterday just in case. I didn't even think of calling the carrier should I need it. But there are so many more questions. There's one in particular I was hoping we can hit. It's going to be a single answer lightning round because we've got 1 minute left. What is the next place that we're going? What's the major thing that you think, putting aside all the here and now that we're sort of scrambling on and putting in, I just go around, what is a major area where you see focus in the digital transformation, say 2 years out or beyond?
The ability to be very flexible and have very small increments of insurance from a traditional carrier, not a fintech.
Okay. Eugene, how about yourself?
Understand the customer and totally transform the whole engagement of in the insurance industry with customers.
Vikram.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to the same thing that I said. Really sort of, simplify, but think complete end-to-end process, not in small chunks. And think about process first, not technology first. I think it's a misnomer. And being a technologist myself, I'm proud of saying that it's a misnomer.
Yeah. No, that's great. Powerful point to end on for all of us. The three of you really had quite a bit of alignment in the customer centricity, putting yourselves back in that perspective and trying to solve what those needs are rather than, as Vikram was just saying, ooh, that's a really interesting bit of technology. Let's put that out and then figure out what to do with it. And this is, of course, a context where we didn't have much choice but to solve for these very real customer experience issues out there. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the attendees. You submitted fantastic questions. I wish we had time for more of them, but it does show me people are actively thinking about this and looking for more insight, which is, again, why you want to go register for the Future of Insurance Canada, because you will get a lot of those insights and hear from people like Anna and Eugene and Vikram about what's going on in actual companies who are living with this stuff every day. So thank you again to the panel and to Reuters Events for putting this event on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.